Hi everyone, I'm Tara Strong, and as you know, I am crazy about animals because they are so cute, and they're our friends, and they are hardcore. Here's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky of the Illinois 9th Congressional District to tell you why these service animals are so important.
Always try to honor our caregivers, all the people that are so necessary to make life possible and to improve life for so many Americans, the elderly, people with disabilities. But sometimes we forget to thank the service animals. We see them on airplanes, we see them in the community. And while so many of us are lovers of animals, they provide a real service. I'm using the word animals because it's not all dogs, as you will see in this video, that it goes beyond that. And so let's acknowledge how important that they can be, and they are trained specially to make sure that they enhance the life of people who need them to live fully in our society.
However, sometimes, as much as we adore our furry and some not furry friends, some people don't know how critical service animals are. Tell us about your service animal.
This is my service dog, Angelica. She creates an improved quality of life for me, as I'm someone who suffers with over 10 pre-existing conditions, including lupus. Angelica helps me ambulate and keeps me mobile. Don't you, Angelica? Here she is at work, comforting me from my anxiety.
Hi, I'm Megan, and this is Butters. Butters is 7 years old, and he's my service dog. I've had Butters since he was about 8 months old. He's a rescue Jack Russell Terrier mix. He's about 6.5 pounds, and when I rescued him, they actually told me that he has a neurological disorder that people usually notice with his rapid eye movements, as well as when he walks. He walks a little bit crooked, but as you can tell, he's extremely calm, extremely well behaved, and well trained. I've been diagnosed for several years with a few mental health disorders, and Butters really helps to alleviate those symptoms so that I can function.
Hi, my name is Jenny Bramble, and I live just outside Detroit, Michigan. I have a service dog named Captain Morgan. He is a mixed breed bully breed. I obtained him when he was 5 weeks old, and he's currently 4.5. When I started training him, I didn't know how to train, so I looked on a lot of YouTube videos. I did pet shop training for just basic obedience, and then since then I've done a lot of tasks on my own using guidance from YouTube and books. And I actually have a celebrity that's a trainer when he's not acting, and he follows us on social media and gives me tips and tricks and challenges. In the past year, since we've been kind of shut down for COVID, instead of going out and continuing our training and tidying up our tasks and learning new tasks, we have focused more on titles and fun challenges. He has over 100 ribbons in his room, and we've done things like stunt dog, where it's like a live performance. We've done trick dog, so he's a grand champion trick dog. We've done canine ninja, which is like dog parkour. We've done barn hunt and things like that. All of those have been virtual submissions, so we've been able to continue working together and training this past year, even though it hasn't been task training specific. He's a goofball. Ball is life. That's his favorite toy, is his ball. If I stop at a park, he starts to whine because he knows we're going to go play ball.
All right, this is Flirty. She is an American miniature horse who is 9 years old. Her full name is LA Blues, a little flirtatious. She's been working as my service animal now for 4 years. She has pretty much changed my life. Before Flirty, I couldn't go out by myself. I couldn't manage to do grocery shopping and simple tasks like that. Thanks to Flirty, now I'm able to go out and spend time with friends, do things like grocery shopping and things like that. She's really given me back my freedom and independence.
During Healthcare Awareness Month and every day, it's a service animal's job to increase the quality of life for their human counterparts. Here's some of the jobs they do.
So this is Eva. She is my multi-purpose service dog. She is a 5-year-old German Shepherd. Her main tasks are revolving around mobility and medical response. Specifically, her tasks include forward momentum pull, which helps me walk, tick interruptions, deep pressure therapy, which is where she lies over me, and her weight helps me to regulate my body. And she also does retrievals. Those are her main tasks. She does do a couple other ones, such as closing the door or wheelchair pull and a couple others, but those are her main ones.
The way I interact with my service dog Angelica is very similar to the way that you interact with your pet, except for one major difference. Angelica has certain jobs that she does for me, and these include helping me ambulate. They include keeping me calm when I'm having anxiety attacks. She also alerts me when I'm going through a lupus flare. She is very sensitive to that. So these are things that she does for me every single day, every single hour. And sometimes she is off the clock and can play like a normal pet as well. But for most of the time, right now, she is sleeping and resting. It's always good to see her calm because it keeps me calm too.
He does mobility for me. So he does things like picking up things that I've dropped. He can open the refrigerator door. He can open his closet door. He can help me take off like my sweatshirt or hoodie. He can pull on the sleeves. He can take my socks off. He can even take clothes out of the dryer for me. So it's great having him around. Not only that, he's helping me, but I do live alone, so it's nice to have that companion.
I interact with Butters in general like most dog owners do, by spoiling him and giving him lots of love and attention. The only difference is that I take Butters with me almost everywhere I go, including restaurants, stores, even doctor's appointments, because service dogs are legally permitted anywhere that their owners are, unless it can be proven that it would cause significant undue hardship to the business. As a service dog, he's well behaved and well trained, so that's never been an issue, but we kind of prefer dog-friendly places anyways. He uses his sense of smell to detect even the slightest changes in my heart rate, my blood pressure, and my breathing pattern. He might gain this insight from things like my voice, my breath, sweat, body temperature, even my fidgeting and my body tics. He's then tasked with responding to these cues by providing me with tactile, sensory input, and kinesthetic stimulation, including pressure therapy. If I were to lose consciousness or experience temporary paralysis due to a severe anxiety or panic attack, he would alert me by pawing, licking, or barking.
Throughout the day I interact with Flirty. She spends a lot of her time out here in her paddock when we're not working. So typically speaking, I only need her to work for a few hours a week just when I'm going out and about. I don't necessarily need her when I'm at home. So a lot of times she's out here where I might come out and check on her, feed her, play with her a little bit. She also sometimes comes in the house as she is potty trained, which is required by the Americans with Disabilities Act. And then, of course, when we're working, we also interact that way as well.
How do other people react to your service animal, and how does that affect your daily life?
Most people, when they see Ziva, they get really excited because there's a dog in a place that there wouldn't normally be a dog. Every now and then we do get some people who are scared of her. Typically those are younger kids. Every now and then we get some adults. Part of it I do believe is due to her breed because she's a big scary German Shepherd. But yeah, most of the time people are really excited to see us. We get a lot of comments like, what a beautiful dog, you know, cute dog, whatever. We get a lot of that. Most of the time it is directed towards Ziva instead of me, so I ignore those. What I mean by that is someone will say, oh, you're a cute dog to her, instead of saying, oh, you have a beautiful dog to me. And that distinction is just really important. So if no one is talking directly to me and they're talking instead directly to my dog, I typically don't acknowledge those as often just because we get so many of them and it can get tiring. In addition to the little comments, we get questions like, can she be pet? Which the answer is always no. We get, can she be pet? We've gotten people who try to feed her. We get a lot of men who like to bark at her, and other people do it too, but it's funny because it tends to be mostly adult men who will try to bark at her. We also get people who pull in her ears or her tail or will grab her face. Our town is a really dog-friendly town, so you get a lot of pets in places where normally it's just service dogs, or people who bring in pets regardless of if it is supposed to be just service dogs. So a lot of the time people don't really respect that she's a working dog. I often have to remind the public, or sometimes they just don't care. They just see a dog and they're like, wow. A lot of times once I clarify that she is a working dog, people are super nice about it. We have gotten some people though who get mad. They get mad that Ziva doesn't get excited or go to them when people give her attention, which is what she's trained to do. She's trained to ignore these people, and sometimes they get angry that the dog isn't responding the way that they expected it to. This is especially common when I'm at my job. People will stop, they will come into the back area where they're not supposed to be and just look at us. So we do garner a lot of attention here, but that is to be expected. Normally, because of all of these little interactions that we get, it makes our trips very much longer than they normally would be otherwise. For example, if I needed to run to the grocery store to grab some bread and some milk, an outing that might take 5 minutes might take 10 minutes instead, because we get because we get so many of these little interactions, it makes that trip so much longer. And that goes with, a lot of things, not just grocery shopping. It can be at my job if I'm trying to stage something, put something away a certain way. Someone is following me or standing in my way, where they're just standing there looking at Ziva, which happens kind of a lot. Those things can impact my productivity and such. But those are just the negative aspects of it. In addition to that, you have the positive aspects. I've met some other service dog teams, which are awesome. We love connecting with others. I've talked to a couple of people who, they're older and they've had service dogs in the past, but maybe they don't have one now because this one lady told me she didn't want her dog to outlive her, which that made me a little bit sad. But you do meet some great people because of your dog, which is really awesome, and I love that.
Having a service dog is interesting. Having the service dog out in public does make for some positive and negative experiences. Some of the positive experiences I've had are things like people amazed that my breed of dog can be a service dog. They don't usually see the bully breeds as service dogs. So that's kind of bringing to light the fact that any breed of dog could be a service dog if they have the right temperament. Sometimes I'll hear little kids, mommy, looky, doggy. And it's really great when I hear the parents go, oh no, that doggy's working. You can't pet him. See the vest? There's been a couple times that I've had enough time in my day that I have stopped and talked to the children and showed them the vest and say, see, it says service dog, and you can't pet them because they're working. And the parents have been really great. I actually one time did a series of seminars at our local 4th grade schools. I did all the schools that had 4th grade, and it was actually a disability seminar, and the students were exposed to various prosthetics and crutches and canes and walkers and glasses that made it look like you had a vision disability. And I actually came in and gave a short spiel on service dogs to every kid. So that was nice that I got to educate. And being an educator, I was a teacher for 20 years. I'm still always educating. So that's another positive aspect, is when I'm out there, I'm advocating and educating the public and the gatekeepers at businesses. Some of the negative things that I get are people that don't like the breed of dog I have, or they're scared of him, and they tell me that he can't be a service dog because of his breed, or I see them run down a different aisle as we're approaching. Parents pull their kids away thinking my dog is going to like attack them or something. I don't really have a whole lot of access issues. Part of it is because I do understand the laws and I do advocate for myself with my rights to have him with me. I've had a couple managers or gatekeepers kind of say, well, he can't be in here. And I'm like, well, he's a service dog. And they go, why? Or for what? I answer that question as if they miscommunicated the second question that's allowed by federal law of what tasks does the dog do for you. I've had people question the gear he has on. There are times that I wear a head harness or a gentle leader, and I always get, why does he have a muzzle on? So people don't understand all the ins and outs of service dogs. So I guess I like to educate. I kind of dismiss all the negative because I know the truth. Even when people walk by and they try to distract us and tell us how good of a dog he is, or, oh, my dog just died, or oh, I had a dog that looked just like that, and they want to like stop and talk to me, I kind of pretend I don't hear them so that I can just kind of keep moving and not be rude and be like, stop talking to me. So mostly positive interactions with the public. Go to Comic Cons, which is very crowded. People there are very respectful. And that comes from the whole idea that you can't touch without asking. And that goes for people, dogs, props, etc. So I will continue to advocate. I will continue to rack up the positive events and keep on living my life.
People react to Flirty in various ways. A lot of people are surprised to see a miniature horse in the store, which is understandable. They also, from there, it depends. Some people are just kind of go on about their daily business. Some people ask questions or start being rude about her as well. The impact that has on my life is that it means that I can't go out and just have a quick grocery shopping trip. It always takes a little while because of people wanting to ask questions and things like that. So that's a little bit of an interesting thing to have to deal with in my day-to-day life with her.
When it comes to how people react when I tell them that Butters is my service dog, I'm almost always met with some kind of doubt or disbelief, whether that's in the form of a facial expression, like somebody rolling their eyes, asking too many questions, or even outright rude comments. You'd be really surprised at the lack of education and awareness there is around ADA law and service dogs, especially in professional establishments and public businesses. They're not required legally to have any documentation, but I always carry his letter out with me. A lot of times he's in his carrier, which he loves, but as you can see, he's well behaved and causes very little disruption anyways. I'm not worried about any of that when I take him out. What really gives me a lot of anxiety is other people's reactions and not wanting to get into a confrontation and the lack of education. So it's definitely an issue.
How do people react to my service animal? A lot of people react to my service animal like she is my pet, and unfortunately that includes when I'm walking her, that people come up to her and they don't realize that she's actually working for me. And I just think it's really helpful if you ask before going up to an animal that you see, even though they could look cute and adorable like Angelica, that they're actually working. I've also had incidents in grocery stores, in doctor's offices, where people have questioned whether she is actually and legitimately a service dog. And it's very stressful having to explain that, but it's really important that we break down these barriers so other people are able to ambulate like I do with their own service animals. So my advice is to keep having these interactions, as stressful and triggering as they can be, I know they are, I've had them myself, it's really important to keep advocating for your service animal and to be able to bring them with you wherever you go, because that is their job. Even as cuddly and wonderful as they look, they do us such a wonderful service. No pun intended.
What's a common misconception about service animals that you'd like to correct?
One of the common misconceptions about service animals that I would like to see dispelled is that they are registered. According to the Americans with Disabilities Act, there is no registry for service animals. Most of the time, people who present registries are people who have bought them online from scam websites, and those registries actually are not legitimate. So that's definitely a big one I would like to see corrected in the eyes of the public.
There are so many misconceptions when it comes to service dogs, but I would have to say that the biggest one for me in Butters is all kind of rooted in the fact that he's a psychiatric service dog. So mental health already has a stigma around it where people have a difficult time recognizing those disabilities as legitimate because they can't physically or visibly see anything wrong with the person. And then so they hear these terms, mental health, anxiety, psychiatry, and they automatically assume that I'm the one that's misinformed and that I actually mean to say that he's my emotional support dog. But mental illness can be just as debilitating as a physical handicap at times, and in fact, those symptoms do manifest themselves physically. So I think that the biggest misconception around all of this is just looking at Butters and thinking that he doesn't look like your typical service dog, and then seeing me and thinking that I couldn't possibly have a legitimate medical condition.
There are so many misconceptions about service animals, and it would take forever to touch on every one of them. But one of the things that I don't see talked about a lot is what a service dog's job can look like and what it does and does not look like. So, for example, a guide dog is kind of easy to tell when they're tasking. They're out in front of their human, they're guiding them to different places, but other service dogs may not be as obvious. For example, one of Ziva's tasks is tick interruptions, and that looks like her nudging her head under my hand. Now, to someone who doesn't know better, that can look like a dog who's just vying for attention, and they might think, oh, that dog is disobedient. There's another task where Ziva does forward momentum pull, which helps me walk. So it almost looks like she's guiding, except she's pulling more into her harness, and that forward pressure helps me to keep walking. And sometimes people comment, oh, that dog is pulling her around. That's not how a service dog should act, you know? But the thing is, all these things look different, and it's going to change for every dog, every team, and every disability. It's all going to look different. Another example, which is very common in smaller service dogs, is they may jump up on you to alert to something, like, I don't know, a seizure, low blood pressure, whatever it may be. They may jump up, and again, to an outsider, they may be like, oh, that dog is disobedient. But that isn't necessarily the case. Are there some pet dogs that shouldn't be out that do act like that? Yes. But there are some behaviors that may look like a dog is misbehaving, but they're actually doing their job. You have to look at how the person responds to what the dog is doing, and that can help you determine whether the dog is just being disobedient or if it's doing its job. That being said, a dog laying down under a desk or something could also still be doing its job. It could be doing light pressure therapy, maybe on someone's feet. It could be waiting for an alert. All those little things, that can all be the dog doing its job. So you just have to be open-minded about service dogs and what their job looks like, because there are just so many things that the dog could be doing, so many things that the dog could be responding or alerting to or whatever. So it's just important to keep that open mind as to when the dog is working.
Common misconceptions of the public about service dogs. One of the first ones that I see all the time is people not understanding how many different kinds of service dogs there are. And they'll be like, oh, well, your dog can't be in here. You're not blind. That's not a seeing eye dog. Because that's what people think service dogs are guide dogs. So I have had to educate on, no, there are other kinds of dogs. You've got seizure alert, things that, they can interrupt behaviors. They can do diabetic alerts, migraine alerts, heart problem alerts, mobility. And there's all sorts of kind of mobility. There's light mobility where you don't really need to put any weight or stress on the dog. And then there's heavier mobility that needs a special kind of dog for that, because you are putting a little bit more weight and stress on their bodies. People also don't realize that miniature horses are an option, whether a person is allergic to dogs. So that's an accommodation that they can make, is by getting a miniature horse. And the other thing would be is if a person is too large, they could get a miniature horse because they'd be able to withstand the weight that you would need. Plus, a miniature horse can work for about 30 years. They don't understand that the dogs are well trained, the horses are well trained. The other main misconception is that people don't realize that service dogs and miniature horses are considered medical equipment. They are equivalent to wheelchairs and crutches and canes and scooters and oxygen tanks. And they don't see that because it's a dog, it's a living thing. I wish people would remember that if they would not say something or do something to me if I were in a wheelchair, they should not do or say those things to me just because I have a dog. People just don't realize that they're medical equipment. They don't realize that you have to have a diagnosed disability in order to even qualify for a service dog or emotional support animal, for that matter. People just think, oh, I'm a little depressed, I'm going to get a dog and I'm going to take it everywhere with me. And it's really hard to fight that, because you've got things out there on the internet that are selling you a piece of paper stating that you can go everywhere with your dog. And it is making it harder and harder for people to realize the rules about it. They just think, oh, the dog keeps me comfortable, so I can take him everywhere. But that's not how you use medical equipment. And I wish people would understand the difference in the types of dogs.
Jobs for their human counterparts, and you may not recognize them to be service animals, but they are. And this little dog does a great job of keeping me ambulated and keeping my chronic illness in check. And I am so grateful and appreciative every single day, because that gets me out and about and it keeps me mobile. Thank you so much, sweetheart. You do a great job.